Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got 3 replays in the Polish Tier 10 Tech Tree Heavy Tank, the 60TP Lewandowskiego. Now if you do like the video as always, don't forget to like and subscribe down below as it really does help out the channel. And yes, the 60TP, it is a slow, heavily armoured heavy tank that has a big slapping 152mm gun. And it's a vehicle that was a little bit left behind by most of the other vehicles in its tier and class, generally getting buffed left, right and centre. And this vehicle was one of those that just sort of sat there going, what about me? You know, and so with the recent balance patch, this tank actually did get buffed. It's made it a little bit nicer generally to play. It's just nice quality of life stuff for the 60TP. I say the gun derps still at times, but it hits hard. Now it aims a little bit quicker, it's a bit faster in reload, and it's just generally okay to play. It wants to be playing hull down, where it can only really expose its turret armour, and then just keep these rounds slapping. So what did actually change on the 60TP? Well, they buffed the reload from 21.6 seconds to 20.7, so they knocked nearly 0.9 seconds off its reload, and the aim time went from 3 seconds to 2.8. So the tank generally reloads faster, and then it also aims its gun in quicker so that it can get the shots out that little bit faster, because the accuracy during rotation was really good on this vehicle, but the accuracy during movement wasn't quite as good, which meant that a lot of the time you generally had to be able to have a little bit of time just to be able to get this gun aimed in and then hit the target. And then, like I say, still occasionally the gun would still say, ha ha, no, I'm going to hit the floor. And you sit there going, but why 60TP? Why would you do this to me? You know? So the 60TP has a 35km/h top speed, which is pretty good for a super heavy vehicle, 14km/h reverse speed, 780 horsepower engine, which is 12.97 horsepower per ton ratio, which isn't so good. And it means that it is pretty sluggish to get up to its top speed, and add in the fact that it's got a 2.85 soft, 1.66 on medium, and 1.2 on firm terrain resistances, it generally means this vehicle is very sluggish and slow, and that can be a bit of pain for the old 60TP. 15% internal fire chances in the middle of fire chances, and generally, yeah, if it gets hit in the back end, it does like getting set on fire, so to be careful of that. You've got 26.16 degrees a second on the hull rotation speed, which means it does turn fairly decently quickly on its tracks for this kind of tank. Still not incredibly fast, but decent enough. You've got 499 meters of view range on this tank, which means you can spot for yourself really, really well as well. 24.33 degrees a second on the turret traverse is pretty slow, but we are keeping it in touch with the tracks by running something like rapid aim. We've got 0.5 accuracy during rotation with a 1.71 accuracy during movement, and we've helped it out as much as possible to get that accuracy during movement down as low as possible so that aim circle isn't that big while being on the move. We don't really do too much except for the gun stabilizer to help the accuracy during rotation though, because that is actually pretty good here on the 60TP. And you do have a 2.58 second aim time as well, which is better now than it used to be, so this gun does aim in that little bit faster, which can be quite nice for Mr. 60TP. A 0.32 accuracy at 100 meters as well is pretty accurate for this kind of gun. Generally, if you do get it fully aimed in, it will hit its shots, but like I say, RNG giveth, RNG taketh, RNG does hate you sometimes, and it will decide, you know what, I'm just gonna miss. I'm just gonna miss because screw you, and that's just it's just what it does, you know. Everyone's experienced that with RNG at times. You've got 8 degrees of gun depression on this vehicle as well, which means you are pretty damn flexible on the ridgeline. It's kind of where the 60TP wants to be, because while your upper plate is really well sloped and it will get you a lot of ricochets, your lower plate is actually pretty well sloped as well, and will again get you ricochets that you don't expect. But the key strength is the fact that this turret is very, very good, and if you're limiting the fact that they can only shoot your turret, it's going to go pretty well for the 60TP. What was that? How did that bounce? Okay, thanks, game. RNG giveth, RNG taketh. Anyway. You got a 50.1 second reload, which is 2.9, nearly 3k DPM, which again, for a tier 10 heavy these days, 3k DPM isn't that great. It is a little bit better than the Chaug, and also the Rogel Dawn as well, but the Rogel Dawn has the multi-weapon system, so there is that going for that. It's not quite at the level of the VK7201K and the E100, which both have a 15cm gun as well, and do have better DPM than you, but only ever so slightly. It's generally within that mid-region for DPMs for a 750 Alpha gun, so for this 750 Alpha type of gun, it's not that bad, really, in context. For which it was the worst before the buff, so that's quite nice for the 60TP. You've got 250 pen on the standard AP rounds, with 317 pen on the premium heat rounds, 90mm of penetration on the HE rounds, which have 950 alpha, and it's 750 on the standard and the premium as well. There's good enough penetration to go through most vehicles you're going to face here in the 60TP, and that 90mm of penetration on the HE can actually be pretty useful as well for the thinly armoured vehicles to do quite a bit of damage to them, which can definitely be fairly juicy for the 60TP. And then in terms of the shell velocities, you've got 900 meters a second shell velocity on all 3 rounds, which is below average, meaning you do have to give a decent amount of lead at distance to be able to hit your targets in the 60TP, and it's part of the reason that the gun feels derpy at times, because that shell velocity just isn't quite as good. But that was the first game in the 60TP, and you saw us finish the game there with a pretty standard total, 4.4k damage, 121 assistance, the third class, the 1092 base XP. Fairly standard game for the 60TP, where stuff went for us, stuff didn't quite go for us. You saw the armour, how it's quite nice, but then sometimes if people just overexpose and go straight for your lower plate, or the firing premium at your upper plate, sometimes they can go through it, and it can just be that little bit frustrating. But generally, I do quite like the 60TP, and I think the little bus just gave it that little bit extra that made it a little bit nicer to play and a little bit more enjoyable in terms of how it performs in battles. So what do I run in terms of recruit and equipment for the 60TP? Well, I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Track Mechanics, Steady Aim, Run and Gun, Rapid Aim, Clutch Braking, with the Advanced Loader, the Optics, and the Gun Stabilizer. Gun Stabilizer to get the accuracy during rotation and movement down as low as possible, so we're not having to feel that 2.58 second aim time quite as badly. The Advanced Loader to get the best out of the DPM, because you always want to do that, and the Optics to be able to get the 499 meters of view range, so that we can spot for ourselves and not get outspotted too easily. The Steady Aim and the Run and Gun to get the accuracy during rotation down as low as possible, and the general accuracy of the vehicle down as low as possible, so that we're not derping as many shots, and again keeping that aim circle down as low as we can do, so that we're not feeling the aim time. We don't really need Snapshot, because we've got 0.5 accuracy during rotation without Snapshot, and that is fantastic, so we focused instead on other problems that the 60TP has by running Rapid Aim and Clutch Braking to make the track traverse on this vehicle, which was slow without it, better, and the turret traverse, which again is incredibly slow without it, better as well, and it just makes the general vehicle feel less lethargic and that little bit nicer. But you could quite easily run Clutch Braking and then run off-road driving to be able to get up to the top speed a little bit easier for the 60TP depending on the terrain, and also makes the track traverse feel a little bit nicer too, because again the terrain, it's not fighting the terrain resistance. There's plenty of ways you can set up the vehicle. It's really down to you and how you want to play the vehicle. So this second game, we're here on this map, which is Murovanka, and we're fighting this corner, trying to hold it. The enemy teams push very aggressively into the middle on our heavy tank and medium tank that are in here, and we're just trying to take advantage of the distraction to try and get guns out of the game, because I wanted to go into that middle area as well, but I didn't get here fast enough because the 60TP is just that little bit too slow. So I didn't get there fast enough. By the time I got to the corner, it was like, that's a lot of tanks looking on this corner. I can't go around there because I'm going to die. And so we're just holding the corner as much as possible. There is a lot of tanks here, and a lot of my tanks are in the forest, and we've only got 2 medium tanks and a TD covering behind us. So at this point, I'm looking at this going, I'm not a fan of this situation. I don't think I'm going to live, so it's about getting and squeezing as much as humanly possible out of this situation. So we get a shot into the Bayer. The Gorilla 15 from the middle at E7 gets a shot into the Bayer and finishes him off. We are looking at the 4005 because I don't want to take a hit for 1,000 odd from the 4005 if I can help it. He's firing Hesh and hits us for about 800 odd, which is a sad time. But we hit him for 844. That's quite the roll. Hit him for 844 there. But we put him down to 941 hit points. So I'm switching to HE because 90mm of penetration on the HE will go through that 4005. And we should, at a 50-50, finish him off in one shot with the HE, which is why we've loaded it. So I'm just trying to angle for the shot into him. He's driven round, fired the Hesh round perfectly into the destructible cover, clearing the way for my HE round, and the HE round paid off. We rolled well enough there to finish off the 4005 with the HE roll, and that's exactly what we wanted. We're up to 5.7k damage with 1952 assistance damage, and we're still holding this corner. Poking over now to see if we can find a shot into the Deathstalker, which we go for, but sadly we hit the floor because, again, like I say, this gun can be derpy at times. It does like missing. It's just one of those guns that you sit there going, oh, Come on, 60 TP Lewandowski, go. How did you hit the floor? Really? You know, it's one of those. So we see the CS-53. He is a one-shot for me, but, well, the Gorilla 15 shuts him down. We're still being gate-kept by this M5Y currently, which is using its great 12 degrees of gun depression to just play that ridge perfectly, and it's a bit awkward for me to go through because I've got to hit the cupola on top of the M5Y, and again, that is just a bit of an awkward shot, especially for a gun that is a bit derpy at times. So we get the heat round straight through the top of the turret from the M5Y, who's using the 105mm gun that thing gets. But now I'm going into the position I want to be in, which is on this little ledge here, being able to poke over the top, get some better elevation for shooting at that M5Y, and the Deathstalker over there as well. We're also getting up behind the SFAC 105, but with the SFAC 105 running away, I decided, okay, now I've got the building covering between me and the M5Y and the Deathstalker. I can use that as cover and try and get up behind the SFAC to shoot him, but the SFAC gets finished off. The Deathstalker gets finished off by the Iron Rain as well, but I was spotting these guys, so I've managed to get up to 3,094 assistance damage so far. And I'm hoping to get at least one more shot into M5Y. And with our team closing in, I decided, okay, I could take a hit from this guy, but you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to go over and smash the side of the turret. And in fact, he's not using the 105, he's using the 120mm there. You can tell by the gun breech. And the, gun barrels, I should say. Muzzle break, whatever you want to call it. So the machine ends up shutting down. We're finished with the victory. There's 2 kills, 6.4k damage, nearly 6.5, 3k assist. That's 9k combined. The ace tanker, the high caliber, with the 1606 base XP. A really great game there for Mr. 60 TP on Murovanka, showing off what it's capable of. When you get into that hold down location, you can bounce quite a few shots off that turret really nicely, and because we've got that slightly better DPM now with that 15-second reload and having the nearly 3k DPM, we can just push out damage that little bit faster, which helps you to not get overwhelmed quite as quickly in the 60 TP. So we're on to the third and final replay of this video, and we're going to make a very do-or-die aggressive play for something like a 60 TP, and that is we're going to rush to FE2. Now, this is a very aggressive do-or-die play for a 60 TP, because it's an aggressive play for anything that's fast. The 60 TP is not fast, and as you see, the AMX M4, I think it's 51, is already in that corner at the left. We get spotted because of him, which means any TDs down there could hit us and smash us, and we lose a load of hit points. But thankfully, the XM57 bounces. The Object 7032 went for the double barrel and bounced. Although this time, he managed to drive around and get a single shot into us, but he is just YOLO into his death now in front of snipers at J1, but also me and 2 other tanks. And we get rid of that Object 7032 black. We're up to 367 damage, 678 assistance, and Mr. Progetto 65 has fired 2 shots. So while we wait for our reload, I'm just going to poke over, again exposing only my turret, because I know I'm going to bounce anything he fires at my turret, and slap the shot straight through the turret front of Mr. Progetto 65. I've got backup as well with the machine, so I'm pretty confident this guy comes in, he's going to die. So the machine's putting shots in, bouncing off his upper plate, and if you're looking at a Progetto 65 going, it's a Progetto 65, it's got no armor. The upper plate is actually very well sloped and catches a lot of people out, and probably caught the machine out as well, at how much it will actually ricochet shots. And so if you're not careful and you hit if you ricochet off a Progetto 65, you will actually bounce off the upper plate just because of the angling, which is why you saw me go for the lower plate, or we're going for the turret front. We're really trying to avoid actually shooting that upper plate. So we get a shot into the LTTB, shutting him down. I could have shot at I think it was a machine that was trying to fly into a position at E6, E7, but I decided to ignore him and go for the light tank, because the light tank was on the hill contesting our medium. It's not a machine, it's a TVP 50/51, but anyway. He was contesting the medium tank for the top of the lighthouse, so I decided to get rid of the light tank, and then we can focus on Mr. TVP 50/51. Once we go after once the TVP is dead, though, I want to kind of focus on getting rid of the guys that are on the 1-2 line. So the VK4502A has just shut down the TVP, which means we can now poke over and actually shoot anyone down there. So we see the XM57 sideways on. We're going to aim for the back end, because that's where you can set it on fire, and is where I've always got set on fire in that vehicle, by getting shot in the back end. And like you've just seen, it got lit up on fire as soon as we shot it. We're a high caliber gun. We've got pretty high module damage at 203 HP. So if we hit the fuel tanks on the back of a vehicle like the XM57, we're probably going to set it on fire. And because I knew that's where the engine bays, or the engine blocks were, and the fuel tanks, just from experience of playing it and knowing that a shot that enters that position against me tends to set me on fire, I knew that shooting it there might actually light it up. And that's what happened. So we get a shot into the Scorpion G because we're in the God position for our tank right now, which is hull down. That guy can only see our turret, waiting on the reload, so hopefully we can finish him off, but the M6Y ends up shutting him down. Now looking for shots into Mr. AMX M451. Aim for that back end, and we set him on fire. And that's the exact reason, again, we aimed for the back end of the MX M451, because we know where the fuel tanks are. It's where the engine block is, in the back end of that French Tier 9 heavy tank. So it's always worth just chancing it, and especially when you've got a high caliber gun like the 60TP with the 152 and high module damage, you can likely set people on fire by doing that. Now that was one that we actually got, which was a fairly jammy shot, and I realised when I aimed at that MX M451 that I could actually get it, and that was an overmatch of that guy's engine block, or not engine block, his roof armor, his deck armor, that's the word I'm looking for, his deck armor, because he's only got 40mm of armor on the deck of the MX M451. 152mm gun will overmatch that, and because we were shooting down, it was actually a pretty easy shot. It was just as long as RNG let us hit that shot, and, well, it did, so we overmatched it, went straight through, and finished off Mr. AMX M451. Now we're pressuring the tanks that are over here along the G line that's left. We got shot into the 277, and there's only one tank left on the enemy team. It's another heavy tank, and I was fully expecting him to be coming around the corner at D8 because he was last spotted going around the cliff, and there he is. So we put a shot into the upper plate of the M6Y. My driving, by the way, is absolutely stupendous. He bounces off of our upper plate, really hoping to get another shot in, especially with the M6Y now bouncing off him. Maybe we can get 8.7k damage. So I go around the rock, but he actually... Oh no, I realise what I've done there. We actually do track damage only, and only blew off the tracks of the M6Y. And it's because we ran out of AP, and I didn't realise it in the game. Our heat round got absorbed by the spaced armour of the tracks. That was a poor shot, but it's because I didn't realise we had only had heat rounds left, and that's why I hate heat, but there we go. We finished with the Ace Tanker, the high caliber, 1780 base XP for that 10.3k combined. Really nice game for 60TP, which has been buffed in the recent patch, and that's just what the 60TP is like. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!